I am going to speak about the highlights, certainly not nearly all the highlights, I wouldn't think, but the things that jumped out of me through certain things I read or heard through podcasts, et cetera. So I'm sure there's other things people may want to add. Feel free just to raise your hand in the meetings and feel free to jump in or add as we go along. But based on what we've seen so far in August, here's what I think we should be expecting to see in the rest of August. I told you it'd be less than 3 minutes.
That's awesome. Oh, wow.
Anybody else have anything? In all seriousness, I'm going to be speaking about T. Coronae Borealis, which you'll understand more of if you haven't heard of that shortly. Obviously, the Perseid meteor shower, what the moon is going to look like during the month of August. Some top level highlights for the month as far as observing, and I will just finish it off for those who have interest in various launches and what's going to be going on with those during the month of August. And what I like to do on each of my pages is really just put a source. So if after the fact people want to go back and look at any of these things, they can feel free to at least understand where I found my materials. So the topic I'm starting to hear more and more of in the last few weeks, which is exciting for the astronomical world, is T. Coronae Borealis, which is also referred to as the Blaze Star. And I don't think you can see me pointing my pointer, but if you look towards the center of the graphic towards the bottom, it says Corona Borealis.
We can see your pointer.
Okay, good. So somewhere in here, and I am not smart enough to know where that somewhere is, there is supposed to be a star, or what will look like a star appearing. It happens roughly every 80 years. And this is, from my readings, not considered a supernova. A supernova, I believe, is the remnants of something that has ultimately died or is about to die, whereas this nova is a recurring thing, and it happens essentially, if you think of it almost as a volcano that erupts roughly 80 years, and it causes the bright gas and other things which cause it to be visible. So based on what I've read, it is, again, going to happen somewhere in the Corona Borealis area.
Yeah, Don, it's a little bit left of the crown. It's a little
Okay.
bit on the left side.
So
Yeah.
around to the within the U-shaped crown?
Yeah, no, outside of your shape, a little bit lower. Keep
Okay,
going. A little bit lower. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, right there somewhere. Right
Okay.
there.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that, Frank. Yeah, I had assumed it was somewhere within it. So essentially, this is a recurring thing. It was first discovered in the fall of 1217 by a gentleman named Burchard Abbot of Erzberg, Germany. And he noted, again, the faint star shown for a very short time with great light. The last time it was seen from Earth was 1946, and it is expected to occur again, certainly by September of this year, but it could even be earlier. So I'm sure there's people a lot more adept at this stuff who are probably watching this religiously right now and looking for any traces of it. But certainly the experts seem to think that by September of this year, all of a sudden there will be an additional star in this general vicinity, and it will last for about a week. And that is the Blaze Star. The other big event, and we've spoken about that, is the Perseid meteor showers. This year, because I believe the moon is going to be at about a quarter phase, it is anticipated as being potentially a good see because of the minimal light from the moon. The best time, based on everybody's projections, is the morning of, or I should say sometime before sunrise, August 12th. So again, that would be after midnight of what becomes August 12th. At 1400 UTC, which for us is 10 in the morning. So if you back it up a few hours before sunrise, my intent is to probably take a look at it late night of the 11th, but certainly set an alarm for 1 or 2 in the morning and go out and see what I can start to enjoy when it becomes August 12th. And we'll get to this in a minute, but I know Steve Vendel sent out an email, several of them, about any group viewing and where people may want to do that. So we can certainly finish this slide talking about that. But again, it's going to be first quarter, 50% illuminated, which does make it a little bit more viewable for all of us. Midnight to dawn on the 12th. The meteor showers, essentially, for those who may not know, happen when our rotation causes us to go through the tail of a comet. And in this case, that comet is 109P, Swift-Tuttle is the name of it. That comet was discovered by two independent astronomers, Lewis Swift and Horace Tuttle, hence the name Swift-Tuttle, in 1862. And what I read just earlier today, and I put this as my last bullet point, is estimates are somewhere between 20 and 30 per hour, depending on your light conditions, but at the peak of it, up to 100. So it could potentially be a nice one for us if we have the right conditions and so on. And one more slide, and then we can just talk about viewing opportunities and where we might want to go. So again, it's apparently going to be emanating from Perseus, which is, north is straight down here, so it would be this part of the sky. But again, what I've learned about meteor showers is you don't necessarily need to stare up at a particular part of the sky. If you're going to see them, you may be seeing them for what appears to be randomly throughout. So what I wanted to just do is, again, Steve, I know you sent out some inquiries about anybody who's intending to see it as a group, and I certainly would love to do that. I don't know where the best place to go to do it is, but it seems to me like, Sunken Meadow, Robert Moses, or some other place where we could potentially have less light obstruction.
I think this is a more northerly facing meteor shower. So in the past, we've gone to Sunken Meadow. I'm going to be checking with the state to see if they're going to, usually they like to leave the gates open for these kind of events. So if you don't have a stargazing permit, you still may be able to come. I'll check that the next day.
Okay. And so for those of us who have permits, in any case, we could be going there, but for those
Right.
who may not have a permit and want to,
Um,
view as an ASLE group, just look for Steve's future emails and we can talk about
Yeah,
where to do that best.
I think Sunken Meadow would be the best
Okay.
for this
But-
particular meteor shower.
Yeah. And again, obviously
If
all subject.
somebody else has a different thought, please.
All right, so that is the meteor shower. Next thing I'll just briefly talk about is the phases of the moon for the month of August. New moon already occurred several days ago. First quarter is due next week, which is around that same time of the meteor showers, a little bit before then. Full moon, August 19th. This month it's referred to also as the sturgeon moon, having to do with, I guess, the sturgeon that swim in lakes, visible from the full moon at the time. And then third quarter moon is scheduled to be obviously towards the end of the month. So conveniently, the moon kind of follows the cycle of the month for August. One interesting thing also in August is the moon will reach apogee, which is the furthest point along its orbit of Earth. And therefore, on August 8th at roughly 21 is 10:31 in the evening, will appear slightly smaller than it would at other times. And again, that is tomorrow, assuming we can even get a look at it. And apogee is caused simply because we don't the moon's distance from Earth varies because its orbit isn't perfectly circular, it's slightly oval. So therefore, you do have certain times where it is further away than it would otherwise be. And that happens to be tomorrow evening at 10:31. Actually, 9:31. I was never in the military. 12 plus 9 is 21. Therefore, 9:31 tomorrow night. One of the things I always like to personally just take a look at is just, how much more observing are we going to have? It's funny, until I recently got back into the astronomy hobby, I loved late night sunsets and more daylight, meant more time to do great things. And now all I seem to care about is, boy, June 21st is not a favorite day of mine. So fortunately, during the month of August, you can see that the average length of the day, and this is as of tomorrow, August 8th, I did, is 14 hours and 2 minutes. But by the end of the month, it's almost an hour less. So we are chipping away slowly by about 2 minutes a day towards darker skies, which for those of us who want to get out and observe, or just do videos or astrophotography, gives us a little bit more opportunity. So we're getting there. One of the highlights I saw, and again, this was simply on my Live Sky account. I just kind of went through the calendar and it pointed it out for February 10th, which is this coming weekend, but I think it's just in general. There is a lot of things to see in the area of Cygnus. So on the Live Sky, they just highlighted August 10th as Cygnus's deep sky treasures. And they point out, you can see in this relatively small area here, there's just a lot of things to see, whether it be through a telescope or if you're doing astrophotography, a lot of Messier objects, the Summit Triangle here through Deneb, Coat Hanger Galaxy, which those of you who I'm sure are experienced observers have seen many times, but it's a really cool one. I remember the first time I saw it actually saying it really does look like a coat hanger. So, there's just a lot to see in this generally pretty small area. And one of my targets for trying to get good images of, but I've yet to do it well, is the Fireworks Galaxy, because I've seen good pictures of that. And for somebody who does it correctly, it really is a great looking galaxy that's very colorful.
What galaxy is that?
Fireworks, and
Oh, Fireworks.
Fireworks, and I can't think of the number offhand.
Sure.
It's an NGC something, I believe. So that's just something else I wanted to point out. Another thing that was highlighted through my software is it's worth taking a look at. And I was doing some observing the last time we had a decent night. I was probably out there for 2 hours, and I just became enamored with some of the, as Dave Bush says, globular clusters. And in particular, M15 is a really good one to observe during August because of its placement, which is here, but it is very high up in the sky, so it's visible for quite a while, and it's a pretty good large size one as well. So again, the software I use basically said that from New York City, it's visible all night. It becomes visible at about 9:07 p.m., 33 degrees above the eastern horizon, and it's a pretty impressive one. Other things that are going on, and Frank certainly spoke about this in detail, but I'll go over it anyway. We have a few what I refer to as close encounters coming up this month. On August 14th, just as Frank remembered, in the early morning hours, Mars and Jupiter are very close to each other. In fact, they're going to be, you can see the coordinates here of 38.5 alt and 92.7 azimuths for Mars, and almost right on top of it or below it, I guess, is Jupiter. And the visual I provided here on the left is based at 4:30 in the morning on August 14th. So again, I tried to do early enough where there's still the sun hasn't risen, but late enough to try to get these things really close together. So for my buck, those of you who are going to try to take photos of this or just appreciate it, certainly go out, later than 3:34 in the morning and start to try to appreciate how close they are. And to just drive home the point, this was a great graphic I also came upon. So this length here represents obviously the moon, and this is how far away Jupiter and Mars are going to appear. 3 degrees, I'm sorry, 0.3 degrees versus 0.5 degrees, the average width of the moon. So that should be a great photo op for those who are skilled enough to do it, which is not me. Another close encounters is Saturn and the moon. And again, for this graphic, it's August 20th. And I did this one at 20:45, which would be 8:45 in the evening. So it's just dark enough, I think, to start appreciating it. But you can see what starts to happen over various times. So you can see here, the moon is basically going to start to move from what we're looking at from right to left, to the point where at 22:45, which I guess is 10:45 in the evening, the moon will appear to have blocked Saturn. And then again, if you fast forward to 12:30 in the morning, now Saturn is extremely close, but on the right side of the moon. So again, a good time to go out, depending on what you want to see, would be between the hours of, call it, 10 and 1 in the morning on August 20th into the 21st. And you can kind of watch the movement of Saturn and the moon. And the last is all three of these, Mars, Jupiter, and the moon, are still in relatively close proximity, and that is going to be on August 27th. So again, I just did this graphic just to show you, in effect, that they are all still in the pretty close neighborhood here. So again, I'm guessing for the skilled photographer with probably a decent wide angle lens, you may be able to somehow get all three, but I have no clue because, like I said, I don't, not very adept at that type of astro imaging. But the moon and Jupiter are actually going to share the same right ascension, and the moon is going to be passing 5 degrees to the north of Jupiter, but the moon will be 23 days old, so it'll be dim enough, hopefully, where it won't hide the ability to see Jupiter and Mars at that same time.
What time is that? I'm sorry, did you have the time on that?
Yeah, yes, 4:30 a.m. on the 27th of
Oh, okay.
August.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And finally, this is just, 2 different views of the constellations. And I just did it for the middle of the month, August 15th at 10 o'clock p.m., as though we were looking from the skies of the Vanderbilt. So this is what you'll see generally looking towards the north as far as constellations go. And again, here's Cassiopeia, and the Blaze Star, which I referred to earlier, is in this general vicinity as well. And then here's looking to the south, just for a little different perspective of the constellations.
Can you go back to the north one again, please?
Sure.
Just for a second.
There you go.
I realized that the Blaze Star, the biggest reference is Hercules, but that's not in this one, but it's in the.
Yeah, let me see if I can go back to the page for that. So let me just
No,
see
no,
where that was.
that
Oh, you found, okay.
that was fine. I wanted the wide angle view to see where, keep going to the southern wide angle constellation. So it's sort of to the right of Hercules, which is so it's pretty high
Yeah.
in the sky. So that's great.
Right. Yeah.
I'm surrounded by trees here, so I need high elevations, and that's great. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Sure. And then next up, I found this to be an interesting graphic that I was able to run using timeanddate.com, which is its general visibility of the planets. And again, I use the middle of August as the reference point. But you can see that, Mars is an example, because Frank has spoken so much about that. That starts to rise at 12:56, and it doesn't set until obviously the next afternoon. So there's a lot to see starting shortly after midnight. And I believe that Mars is visible even before midnight later on in the month of August. I may be confusing it with something else, but I think by the end of August, Mars starts to become visible even before midnight. But this is, again, I think this is just a pretty good reference about, what planets are out there.
Yeah, that's great. Wow.
And for those who are the NASA and general rocket launch kinds of people, I did this in March, and I was amazed when I did the research, just how many launches there are. And again, these are only the ones that are publicly made mention of, so God knows how many military and other ones we'll never know about. But there's a summary at the end to show you who's got the lion's share of these, but you can see without giving away too much, SpaceX, where is that? SpaceX is pretty predominant there, but we do have one for Roscosmos in Kazakhstan. There's another one for India called ISRO. This one I found interesting here, Gilmore, which is Australian. And it's a demo flight, which I'm not even sure what that is. I may look at that on another time just to see a little bit more detail. There is a Rocket Lab one out of New Zealand. And then this last one, which is interesting, is China, Galactic Energy. And these are all scheduled for various times in August. In August. And then SpaceX, you've got something here, which is a Starship super heavy prototype suborbital. So again, I'm just assuming that's their next attempted launch to see how much more progress they'll make. But when you add all of these up that I've just had in the previous slides, you've got SpaceX with 11, everybody else with 1, but those countries that they're launched from include India, Kazakhstan, New Zealand, Australia, and 2 from China.
That's astounding.
And again, for those interested, the website I used is called nextspaceflight.com. And that is it.